there to Laurie Schwab with the New York Cosmos.
Johnson. Still Johnson. Jones, this looks dangerous for Brisbane Lions. Jones, a good cross. Johnson. Arnold's forward, so's Manus Lamond, still Robbie Slater. Twisting and turning, getting that one across. Lamond! Manus Lamond!
Play on, says the referee. Hayes is onside again. Shot! It's in the net! What a great goal by Graham Hayes!
No call! Score! Salamini for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli. What vision!
Blasts.
Yes! That's it!
Miljevic.
Beautiful goal! Here's Bozanic. They haven't! They might have won it!
Teammate from Heidelberg United and another local product, Charlie Ankus. How do you feel, Charlie?
A bit nervous, but I think I'll get used to it. Get used to it and really put in 100%.
I'm joined here by a very special gentleman, born in Barnsley, I believe living in Bradford, is an Australian citizen, a Socceroo, and played First Division football for Bolton Wanderers. Now, that's a mighty CV. It's a mighty resume for any footballer. We're speaking to Geoff Sleight, born back in 43. How am I going so far with the facts, Geoff?
I live in Wakefield, not Bradford.
All right. Well, I knew I was going to get something wrong. So how far away is Wakefield from your original home of Barnsley?
7 miles.
Okay, so literally on the doorstep.
10 kilometres.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for taking the time out to chat to us. We're a million miles away from each other per se, but we're in each other's lounge room right now. And it's great to see you wearing the Aussie colours. I know you're a passionate Aussie, especially being a citizen, etc. You only spent a short time in Australia, but it's left a huge impression on your life. And we'll talk about that. But take us back to the early days. Take us back to growing up in Barnsley. What do you remember? What are your memories of life, let alone football?
Well, fortunately, we lived on what we would call a council estate. Maybe in Australia in those days they called them commission houses.
Yep.
But these are estates where working class people lived. And that was a godsend because there were a lot of kids, boys, girls lived in the council estate, and I grew up with them, and we played football in the street and we played cricket in the street because there weren't many cars driving around. Because I was one of the younger ones, say at 5 or 6, the gang leaders were 7, 8 and 9, and the big boys called the tune, the little boys had to do as we were told. But when it came to football and cricket, if you did as you were told, you didn't get a bat on a ball at cricket and you didn't get a kick of the ball. So you had to make your own way. To get a kick of the ball, you had to win it and tackle and get it and then dribble it to keep it.
Yeah.
Without realising that is what makes you have skill, or made us have skill or not. Because if you stay without skill, you're back to not getting a kick of that football.
So you learn by those instincts about holding on to a ball, controlling the ball, because if you weren't good at the craft, you weren't going to really be involved in the game, were you?
That's exactly the case, George. And strangely enough, there were no coaches in those days. And even through my school life, my early football life, even until I went to Australia, I never came across coaching as we know coaching today. Coaching, maybe sometimes becomes about the coaches, not the players.
Yeah.
But I suspect and I consider that to be a very big forward step in the game. Coaching stroke organisation.
Of course. So about family life, how many members, was there other kids? Did you have siblings?
How many?
Did you have any siblings?
I have a sister who's 4.5 years younger than me.
Okay.
But behaves 4.5 years older than me. She bosses me about.
No, that's normal for a sister, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So were mum and dad influential in any way, pushing you towards football or cricket or any sport, or was it just because of the way the neighbourhood was? And
more the way the neighbourhood was. I think my dad watched me play football maybe 4 times, 3 times in the first team at Bolton, and maybe once when I played for England at the schoolboy level, at under-19 schoolboy level.
So he came for the big games.
Yes.
Okay. So you talk about junior level and the lack of coaching. So you got to survive on, I guess, your own instinct, your own wits. But at some point you must have realised that you were good enough to compete, and you stuck at it. When did you at what age did you realise that I'm reasonably good at this and I want to keep pursuing it?
Well, at 9 years old, I learned to dribble the ball and wouldn't pass it. I went to a primary school, which was up to 11, and I played in the school team. And we had a school team to play against other schools, and we did win the league and we did win the cup. So it became about playing and about winning. From there, I went to what we call grammar school at 11, and stayed there until I was 18 with the intention of going to college or university and becoming a teacher. Again, at school level, grammar school level, secondary school level, the football competition was good amongst other schools. I was good at my school. I scored goals and I did well. And I played for Yorkshire Grammar Schools, which is the same as New South Wales Grammar Schools, the state grammar school. Yep. And then I moved on, and we had trials for the national team, the under-19s national schoolboy team, and I got in that team along with Howard Wilkinson, who later became a pal of mine and a manager when I was working at Leeds, and also Graham Taylor, who became the manager of England, and a goalkeeper called Jack Jackson, who had a full-time career with Crystal Palace. So even in those days, without having a coach in sight, we'd move forward. We became, if you want to call it might be the wrong choice of words, but at that level, we were the elite players on skill and playing alone rather than on coaching. So you had natural ability or you had basically no ability. That's how I see my council estate upbringing as being the road on which I walked, if that's the same. But I didn't know what I was doing. It's natural to me.
Okay. What are your recollections of playing for the England schoolboys?
The worst recollection is they were lost 1-0 to Scotland.
That's not good for an Englishman, no. What was the standard of football like that?
Well, the standard of football was good. It was good because it was natural. You were there on ability, and everybody was there on ability. So you were the best players in that group of people. And it was good. There were some skillful players. There's the players I mentioned, Graham Taylor, Howard Wilkinson. They made big contributions to football in later years.
Of course. So you're about, so it's under 19s, this level. You would have been 17-ish. Would that be about right?
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, as any 17-year-old who gets picked in any national team, whether it's the full national team, schoolboys, whatever it is, starts to think, I'm pretty good at this, or I'm certainly in the elite. What were you thinking at the time about yourself and where you were heading from this? What were your ambitions at age 17 now that you've been chosen for England? Have your ambitions changed from previous, or were they the same, or you know what I mean? Like, did it affect your thinking making the England squad?
They hadn't changed in terms of where I was going at football. Where they did change it was my intention to go to teacher training college or university and become a teacher and just play football as it arose. But Bolton Wanderers scout, invited me to Bolton for a trial one evening in July 1961. Nothing else to do. There were three of us from the same school who went. We went. I did okay without thinking I'd done anything special. But the day after, one of the scouts came across to my home in Yorkshire and asked me if I wanted to go to Bolton on trial during the school holidays. We have our school holidays, summer holidays in August. You guys have it in December. Yeah. I had got a part-time job at what they call Butley's Holiday Camp. I don't know what I was going to do for £6 a week. But as soon as I was invited to Bolton for the month, I wrote to Butley and said, I'm not coming, I'm going to Bolton. So I went to Bolton and I went there, I believe it was something like the 7th or 8th of August. They were doing their pre-season training. I joined in, noticed the difference in fitness of the full-time professionals and myself, but they picked it up and it worked. By about 21st, 22nd of August, the season started. I played in the third team and we won the game 5-0. The following Wednesday, I was promoted to the reserve team, which we call second grade in Australia, but it's quite a very high level in the game in England. Yeah. And I remember we played Newcastle. Yeah. And I crossed the ball, I beat the player, crossed the ball, and my friend Francis Lee, who became world famous as a soccer player, he was my big goal. He scored a goal. Yeah. I'm still in touch with him, still as a multi-millionaire now, but we're still pals. So that was in third, fourth week in August, and I played 2 or 3 or 4 more games in the reserve team. And on the 5th of September, the manager asked me if I wanted to sign full time for Bolton. I immediately, I said yes. I went back to home to see the grammar school hadn't started school again, so I went to their teacher's house and said, I'm leaving. Nice to have met you. Goodbye. And that's when I signed on the 5th of September. And an interesting story, George, is that as I came out of the manager's office, having signed on, there was a guy there called Alan Ball. Oh, yeah. I said, hello, Mr. How are you? He said, I'm good. He said, congratulations on signing full-time at Bolton. He said, I said, well, what are you doing here? He said, I've come to get Alan's release, Alan Ball. He said, because they were going to sign him full-time professional, but they've signed you instead. But so all the best. He said, I'm taking him to Blackpool. He took him to Blackpool. 5 years later, he won the World Cup with England in Barnsley.
He did. So, had a great career, didn't he?
He had a fantastic career. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but that's one of my proud stories, that Bolton, Mr. Ball told me that Bolton signed me instead of Alan. Yeah. And 5 years later, strangely enough, I played in that same World Cup, obviously, for the Socceroos in Cambodia against North Korea. Yeah, you thought we thought we would win that and come back to England. But of course, we were caught with our pants down, so to speak. North Korea were better than anybody imagined or knew, and it didn't happen. But it was a start.
No, we'll get to that. Just going back to the day you signed your forms to be a pro, and they asked you, how long did you take to think it over?
3 seconds.
Okay, just wanted to double check. I just wanted it for the record. I thought it might be about 1 or 2 seconds, but I just wanted it for the record. You couldn't wait to get out of school, right?
Well, it seemed a good idea. I was going to do a season full-time, then go part-time and go to college again. But no, that all went with the early glory.
Okay, all right. So you've signed for Bolton. Take us through this. When we've had discussions previous, you've used the term meteoric rise. I want you to talk me through the meteoric rise and perhaps even the downside of that meteoric rise.
Well, the meteoric rise, which it was followed by a meteoric fall. I don't want to claim the credit for one and deny the other.
With one comes the other.
was the 5th of September when I signed. I signed on £20 a week. The highest paid player in football in those days was £100 a week. So in football in the UK, so I was on 20% of the highest paid player. If I'm on 20% of the highest paid player now, I'm on about 101,000 a week. So
correct.
Took Bolton for my back pay, but I haven't heard anything.
No.
So that was the 5th of September. On the 15th of September, I was going with some other guys, some other players from my digs where I was staying on the local bus down to the ground, and we bought a Daily Mirror paper. And I was on the bus looking at the paper. Young winger to make a debut for Wanderers. Oh, this is interesting. Who's this? It's me. Nobody had told me. Nobody at the ground had told me. That was on the Friday morning. On the Saturday, played against Manchester City at Main Road.
So
that was 16.
Up until, obviously, you read it in the paper. On the Friday, did you go into the club and did anyone talk to you about it at that stage?
Yeah, they put the team sheet up on the wall in the dressing room. And there it was, mate. And then that was it. I was going back up into town, into Bolton, to catch the bus, and the placards on the papers were young winger to make a debut for Wanderers. And I thought, oh, that's me. That's me. And that was on the Friday night. And then reporters came to the digs where I was living and took me down to Burnden Park and took some photographs of me, which I've still got.
Yeah.
And I did an article for the Bolton Evening News about 18 months ago, and it showed this photograph, and it said, above it, it said, wine, women and song. One day I was looking out of the paper. So that was the beginning of the beginning and the beginning of the end.
Okay. What are your recollections of your first game?
My first game, I did okay.
So you're playing against Manchester City, right?
Played against Manchester City. We lost the game 2-1, but I did okay.
Yeah.
And I have a cutting out of the local sports paper.
Yeah.
That night says, Wanderers go down fighting, but Sleight puts on a show. That was the headline. Now, I didn't think I played that well, but if they think I did, I'm not arguing.
Absolutely. That's a good headline for your debut.
Well, and the beauty about it, George, is it's there in my scrapbook behind me, and it'll be there until the day I go. The kids will probably throw it away, but it's been there a long time. Let's
hope not. No, okay. So, game one. What happened between game one and game two? Can you recall what your thought process was? What was going on in a young man's head?
Well, no, because we played on the Saturday. Played on the Saturday. You had the Monday off, and we were playing again on the Wednesday. So I went down to the ground on Tuesday, and the team sheet went up. We were going to play Fulham at home, and I was playing. So I was playing again, and we went out to play. And I was on the number 11, the left wing as they call it. The right back was a guy called George Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
Who played England at number 2 when they won the World Cup. Now, I didn't know who George Cohen was. I actually did very well the first 20 minutes. Sort of beat him 3 or 4 times, give him a bit of a running. But then it sort of all went wrong in terms of the score, because Alan Mullery, who later played for England, scored the winner in the 89th minute for them. But I must have done okay again, because on the Saturday, I can't remember who team played, but I was 12th man to travel, no subs in those days. I went with the reserve team to West Bromwich Albion. I think the first team might have played Manchester United, but I wasn't involved. But on the Monday, the club were playing Sunderland in a replay in the League Cup, the EFL League Cup, they call it nowadays, up at Sunderland.
Yeah.
We went up there. We weren't very good. We got beat 1-0. Brian Clough, who became a legend scoring goals in England,
I have heard the name.
Brian Clough and we lost that 1-0. And here endeth the lesson, the story. I didn't play with the first team again after that. Played with the reserves most of the time, which it still was a good standard at 18, playing regularly, because in those days, the Central League, as they call it, Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Everton, all the teams from the first division had reserve teams. And if they didn't have squads like they didn't do now, or substitutes, they used to travel with 12 men, and the rest, if they were dropped or if they were injured coming back, they played in the reserve team. So I played against a lot of international players in those days, even in the reserve team. So it's still a high standard.
Yeah, no, it was a very, very high standard. No, I'm well aware of that. So from a personal point of view, you got a taste. You got those 3 matches in a very short time. So when you went away back to the reserves, what sort of feedback were you given in terms of, like, what did you, was there any feedback? You know, did you get any?
No. George,
yeah.
Full-time, first division, top level English football, no coaching. You trained and you played 5-a-sides or 11v11. No coaching at all. So we didn't have feedback. You lived or died by your ability at that given time. If you were playing well, you were in favour, you were well liked. If you weren't playing well, you were dropped, and you just one of the rest. It's a horrible game. No counselling, if you want to call it that. The word is a counselling, which everybody does nowadays, but it didn't exist in those days.
Okay, so no feedback whatsoever. So you're not even sure, like, if, say for instance, if there was a flaw in your game or something that they wanted you to work on, you had no idea because no one told you what it was.
Yeah, the coaches, trainers, coaches, whatever we called them in those days, they tell you the negative things. They never pat you on the back and say you were doing anything well. So when I got signed on because I had the ability to dribble the ball and run past that first player, that second player, that third player even. And that's why they signed me. Then all of a sudden I'm playing in the reserve team regularly, doing it and getting the pat on the back. I play in the first team, and then all of a sudden you're not playing it well. Oh, well, don't run with the ball. Don't run with the ball. What do you mean don't run with the ball? That's what I do. So I beat 3 men, the 4th man takes it off me, they go mad. So you beat 2 men, the 3rd takes it off you, they're going mad. So in the end, I end up not realising, not even doing the things that they signed me to do, get the ball and pass it, or get the ball and lose it. And the only feedback you got, George, was you were dropped. And that was it. I once got called in by the manager at the end of the first season, got a kick up the backside. Because we played at Blackburn in a local cup and we lost 4-1. And I scored the goal, actually. And I got called in, that was a Thursday night. On the Friday morning, I was called in with the manager, and he gave me a right roasting and said that if you're not careful, you'll not even be here next season. I realised in retrospect that he was hoping I'd respond. And we went to Blackburn again on the Saturday. We'd lost 4-1, we beat them 2-1, and I scored the first goal then. And with the attitude, well, I'll show you. And to be fair, that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Yeah.
Get lie down. So I went home after that game, the end of the season, and that was the beginning of the end. Because I had a long, hot summer on Wine, Women and Song, put on a lot of weight, and went back to Bolton. I lost a bit of the weight, but carrying an extra stone, as we call it, or an extra 7 kilos, as you call it, you don't run as fast. And if you don't run as fast, you don't dribble as fast. And if you don't dribble as fast, you get caught and your game goes from up there to down there. And things weren't so good for her. I picked it up in terms of I lost a bit of the weight. But at the end of that season, the second full season, they said, no, that's it. We're not signing you again. So that was the beginning of the next phase of my life. I got an offer to play in Australia.
Okay. Just on the £20 a week when you signed, when you weren't in the first team and you played for the second 11 or the reserves or in the Central League, were you still getting £20 a week?
I got the £20 when I played. No, when I played in the first team, I got £30. Fortunately, the 3 games I played were Saturday one week, Wednesday the next week, and Monday the week after. So I played 3 times in 3 separate weeks. So I got the £30, and that was very, very good money then.
Yeah. So in that time, what was, say, your average office worker earning per week?
At my age, £5 a week. No, not less. A lot of my friends who went to work down the coal mines, which was better money for 16, 17-year-olds, were on £4.50 a week. I was on 20.
Okay, so it was a substantial lot of money. Yeah.
Oh, it was. Yeah. Enough to send a young lad off the rails.
Okay. All right. So obviously you knew by this stage that things had gone to whatever, and you weren't going to get another contract. How did the offer come about? How did Prague fit into this? Where was the connection? How does a boy?
All players were in the PFA, the Union Football Association. I didn't know at the time, but the PFA actually circulated lists of players who were available, and they obviously sent someone to Australia, and Sydney Football Club Prague saw this, and they wrote to me and maybe an offer to play football out there. The money looked good, everything looked good on paper. The reality when I got there wasn't the same. There wasn't as much money as I said, because we played 42 games in England. I go to Australia, we only played 24 games. So the money I thought I was going to get was not as much as it would. It was all semi-professional. So I had a job in Australia. I had a guaranteed job at £20 a week in 1961, which wasn't bad. And if we won at football, if I played and we lost, I got £15. We drew, I got £20. We won, I got £30. So that was £30 plus my 20 from my job was £50. My young wife, got a job on probably £12 or £13 a week. So on a good week, I was getting £62 a week. In 1961, that was good money in Australia for a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
So I did save quite a bit of money for when I came back to England, which has stood me in good stead ever since.
Oh, that's good. What did you know about Australia as a place, or Sydney for that matter, before you'd signed? What knowledge? Nothing.
Nothing. In the late 60s, we had a boy wonder player called Alec Jeffrey, who was 17, played for England in 23 and broke his leg very badly in 1957. Never made it back to the league, but unbeknown to me, he'd gone to Australia.
Yeah.
And when I got and Alec was about 6'1", or sort of 185, 186, and weighed about 14, 15 stone, which was a lot of weight for a footballer, but he was a big lad.
Yeah.
They loved him. He played at Prague, and they loved him because he could only play 20 minutes a game in that heat, but he was amazing. But he was a singer off the football field, and he entertained the club. They loved him. I got off the plane, having been flying for a day and a half.
Yeah.
At 163 and weighing whatever I weighed, 68 kilos. Alec Jeffrey got on the plane at 186 tall and about 110 kilos. So the left hand said goodbye and they said hello to me.
Yeah,
but I did, and in the end, I did as well as Alec did in Australia. But it was all a big challenge, George.
Well, you're only a young boy. It's a big adjustment for a young fella.
It was a big adjustment, but you don't realise at the time. You wake up 16,000 kilometres away from home and thinking, what the hell am I doing here? But no, I'm here. This is the bad times. The good times, we play football and won, I feel a lot better. I go to Randwick Racecourse or to Canterbury or Rosehill now and then, and it's not bad in Australia. Then we lose at football and they all see, why am I here?
Yeah. So you're a 20-year-old. Were you married, or did you at this stage?
I got married to go to Australia, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
She was 20.
Okay. So it's combined together. That's a big move. That's a big culture shock. just moving countries, let alone adding the difference in the football.
Yes, looking back, it was one of the biggest things, one of the 2 or 3 biggest things I've ever done in my life. It saved me. It helped me. It saved me. It sent me down a road which I didn't enjoy it all the way, but I come out the other end just enjoying the experience, loving the experience, being an Aussie, especially when the cricket's on. I'm still an Aussie.
Yeah. Okay, so you're 20-year-old, you've come halfway around the world, and you probably realised that or were you thinking that there was a chance to redeem yourself and go back and play back in the UK? Was there part of you that thought that you could sort that out?
No, not just that. I think I was going to see what it was like. And the first season I was there, I did okay. I did okay. But then an altercation with the club captain 3 games from the end of the season, and I didn't play the last 3 games.
Who was the co-captain? Who was the co-captain?
That's Shineflow.
Okay. Sir Les.
Sir Les, I'll do that for Les. He's a big pal of mine now, to be fair. And I don't know why, but I realised I had to do something. So the extra weight I got on, I lost. I went on a diet at the end of the first season. I got back down to my 10 stone, whatever kilograms that is. And I went back training, and I could catch pigeons again. And that was in the February time. We played in the Ampol Cup, the pre-season cup.
Yep.
I did okay. We got to the final. This was 65. We got to the final. I was told in the pre-match meal that I wouldn't be playing. So thank God I behaved as I knew best. I tipped the table up with all the teapots and towels, and that was it. And I think I've sent you a photograph of that, showing me the won the cup 6-2 against Youghal, and as me they're looking not very happy. But again, we played the first match late. I played in the first match. I was never dropped again. Perhaps it's because they didn't drop me again. I don't know. I never dropped again, and that was February time. By May, I was in the Australia squad against Chelsea. So between February and May, I obviously had some impact or reward for making the effort of doing the dieting and the proper training.
Okay. And what were your thoughts when you got invited or chosen to? How were you told that you were in the Australian squad? How did they tell you in those days?
I read it in the paper.
That's a consistent theme coming here, isn't it?
Yeah, but I got a letter from, what did they call it in those days? ASF, not SF. Yeah, ASF. I got it from there, and I went down. Didn't know anybody, and I was added to the squad. I didn't play in the team. We played against Chelsea down in Melbourne, but it was an experience to be with the lads. I came back, had a good season. The rest, that was from May, June, July. Then August, they picked the squad, which was going to go to Cambodia to play against North Korea.
Which is for the World Cup qualifiers, right?
For the World Cup qualifier. And what had happened, for political reasons, African teams, Asian teams had dropped out and left only 2, North Korea and Australia, and they would play 2 games, not on a goals basis, on a points basis. 2 if you win, 1 if you lose. And if you draw, you have a replay, even though we might have lost 6-4 on aggregate. Yeah. And we went there, picked for that squad, but unfortunately, there were 20 to go who were perceived to be the 20 best players in Australia, but they picked 21, which meant one of us wasn't going, and that kept us on our toes for the month that we're training up in Cairns. But fortunately for one of us who wouldn't have gone, whether it would have been me or not, I don't know. Nobody knows. One of the players, called John Duffy, he hadn't lived in Australia long enough to become an Australian.
Yeah.
And to play for Australia, you had to be an Aussie. So if you're a POM, you only need 1 year's residential qualification. If you weren't, I think you had to have 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Well, John was a pomp, but he'd only been there 8 months, so he was the one that didn't go. So the other 20 of us, of which I think there's only 13 of us left, we went off to Cambodia for an education.
I bet you did. You talked about Cairns there. So you went on a training camp in Cairns. Is that to acclimatise and get used to the conditions of
the weather? The conditions, yeah, definitely.
What are your memories of that training camp, both on or off the field? Because I've had some intel that there might have been some fun.
The training camp?
Yeah.
I might be a bit wise after the event here, learning from the past. But none of us got on that well together. Some of us got onto it. Some of us didn't get on at all. Yeah. There was no effort to make sure that we were there fighting for places, not being part of a squad all pulling the same way. And we didn't train as hard as I thought we should have. I did a lot of, when we did the running, I ran hard. Some of them didn't run so hard, which made me not very popular, but I didn't care. I was there. Because at the time I was fighting for that place to go on the tour. We didn't know then that John Duffy wouldn't be going. So there was not the camaraderie that I think there should have been, or the encouragement to have the camaraderie. It was each being selfish to make sure that you were the one that were getting in that number 11 shirt or that. See, Toddy and myself, my interpretation was that Roy Bliss and Jimmy Pearson would have been the wingers. When they actually picked the team, Toddy and myself were the wingers. And well, we'll come on to the game later, but when we lost the game, they dropped 5 players. And you want to hear Toddy's version of being dropped, he's brilliant, but I'll tell you that when, I don't know, or when you want to talk about the game.
You can tell me.
We lost the game 6-1. There are reasons why we lost 6-1. It wasn't as bad as it sounds on paper, but the reality is it was 6-1.
Of course.
They dropped 5 of us. They dropped John Roberts, the goalkeeper, Stan Ackley, left back, me from number 7, the right winger, Archie Blue, the centre forward, and Toddy, the left winger. I thought, well, I didn't play well because I didn't have many kicks at the ball, so I can't grumble at that. But in later years, I heard Toddy, he's a good lad, Dave Todd, I heard him being interviewed at the function we were at when the percentages were without caps in 2007. Yep. And Toddy said, well, what did you think when you dropped and you lost 6-1? So Toddy, not being demonstrative at all, being a nice, quiet guy, he said, well, you work it out for yourself. He said, we lost 6-1. Why did they drop 3 forwards, 2 wingers and a centre forward? He said, well, our fault we lost because they had the ball. And you would think if they got the ball, it was the defender's job and the goalkeeper's job to keep them out, not ours. I thought, Toddy, that's brilliant. I hadn't thought of that. So when I tell the story, I always say, that's credit to Toddy, not to me. Maybe Toddy was right. Why did they drop 3 forwards?
So who was the coach at the time?
Tiko Jelisavcic.
Okay, all right.
So he was the manager of Alcoa at the time.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the guy went to Mexico some years later and got killed in a car crash. So
that's unfortunate. That's okay. All right. So there's just heading back to Cairns with the acclimatization. I'll get that right. I'll get easy for me to say. But you didn't fly into Asia from Cairns. You came back home for a period, and
we came back home. Yeah, we came back a bit early. With 3 weeks in Cairns, and then some rich Italian guy called Gino Paris. He paid for us to stay a few days in Ingham because he wanted us to play games against the local team. And Jim Baiuti, the president at the time, he was Italian, of course. So they had the arrangement. So we went down there. Gino Paris presumably paid for all the motel and give him something because we played the local teams. Then we came back and had probably a week at home before we went off. Yeah.
Okay, so that's not great preparation coming back for a week.
Well, fortunately, with hindsight, which we're all very good at, when you look back, the old preparation was pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
But it wasn't considered to be horrendous at the time.
No.
But at least when I came over for the reunion in 2015, this 50-year reunion, we were called the Pioneers. And initially, I didn't like the term Pioneers. And then I thought, well, USA, Australia, the countries were founded and built on pioneers. So we founded the World Cup and we built the World Cup, we started. And fortunately, not so much the team after, but certainly the 74 team, who were very successful, they learned from the mistakes of the 70s, and particularly of us in 65, 66. And somebody had to be the first, and it was us. So, but fortunately, over the years, George, especially with the reunion in 2015, it's helped to do away with that thought. That, you know, the Aussies don't like losing, so the 6-1 and 3-1 defeats weren't really covered very much. But now it's been accepted that we were all part and parcel of the development of World Cup and soccer in general in Australia, and that I'm very happy with.
No, that's a fair point. It's correct. And Pioneers I've got an association with that name, but I quite like it.
I like it. It's true. I like it now. And if I took you down to my gym down there, you'll see evidence of Australia all over the place.
Okay. So when you've come back home, the World Cup bid didn't work as planned. Talk me through that next phase of football at club level.
Well, I had another season. I came back in 66. We came back in 65. We had the 66 season. I started that house on fire. I started like I should have been when we were playing North Korea. Yeah. But the team was on the wane at the time. The Prague team, and Les Scheifele missed most of the season, and he was our best player. So we didn't have a very good season. I think we lost the last 4 or 5 games and finished 6th in the competition. But I was going on then anyway. I went home. I thought then I will. Shall try full time. I'm 23 now. I give it a shot for a couple of months and realised it wasn't going to happen. So believe it or not, George, I reinvented myself again. I went and got a degree in municipal administration, which was that was a big moment in my life, following the decision to go to Australia in 64. So that was 67 to 71, doing the degree was a big turning point in my life, and it's been upwards and onwards as I've got older.
Yeah, 66, I believe. I think it was 66 when Roma came out. Now you played for New South Wales against Roma, didn't you? You got good memory.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Strangely enough, George, it's interesting. I played many positions. I started off as a number 11 left winger. After that, particularly the first season in Australia and my last season, the third season in Australia, I was better as a midfield player than a winger. I only played on the right wing twice in the whole time I was there. Once was against North Korea when we lost 6-1, and the other time was against Roma. Now, without going into any detail at all, I had a chat with Tico Jelisavcic when we were on tour. We had a conversation, and I can't tell you what the conversation was about. We weren't serious, only as far as I'm concerned. And he said, I can't help you, Geoff, but I'll make it up to you. Now, you're thinking what you make up and what I can't tell, but I can't tell you that because the people involved are dead. They're not here to answer. And so they picked the team for Roma. I think he picked something like 6 RPA players and 4 hardcore players, and Geoff Sleight from Prague. And I thought, he stuck by his word, Tico. He said he'd make it up to me, and that's what he did. And I did okay against Roma. I was the guy who flew down the wing, it said in the green paper, and crossed for Ricardo Campana to score the equaliser, and then we lost 2-1. So that was a good experience. And I came across a photograph of that team about 5 years ago on the internet, and I'd never seen it before. It's all over the house now.
I bet it is. Well, there's a photo behind me from the game as well there. So.
Well, that one, yeah, that's when we're going out. But I can't remember that. I'm just thinking of the guys with the ball. Anyway, Tico was the coach, and much as he got a lot of stick for the performance in the World Cup, to me, it ended well because he made a promise, which I didn't know what the promise was, but he kept it. And so I've got a different respect for Tico as a person than he was as a coach.
When in your time in Australia, there's some highlights of, as you've mentioned, the New South Wales game, the Socceroos games, Ampol Cup, and the lowlights, of course. I think there was an 8-1. Talk me through the 8-1.
One of my favourite games against Appiah.
Yeah.
Appiah with the team, George, and I didn't like Appiah. We were playing at Lambert Park, the only time I played there. And about 10 minutes into the second half, I scored to make it 1-1. Come on now. To be honest, I was playing them on my own, and we lost 8-1. We lost 8, and I got the Man of the Match award, the 3 points for the Man of the Match award in the, I don't know what is it, Daily Mirror or the Telegraph, I don't know, but I got the Man of the Match award, and I've got the evidence in my scrapbook. Yeah,
got the 3 votes in an 8-1 loss. That's you're having a good day when you're getting votes in an 8-1 loss, aren't you?
Well, yeah, you know when you've played well and when you haven't played well, and I knew I'd played well because I played them on my own. But funnily enough, 3 games before that, I'd done the same against our cover at Wentworth Park. We won that 3-1. I scored 2 of them, and I played them by myself, and I got the 3 points then. Yeah. It was a fantastic start to the season. Unfortunately, it didn't last till the end. But they're all good experience, and for whatever reason, I had the sense to keep the cuttings out of the, sometimes in the Sydney Herald, but always on the green paper, which was the Football Bible. Yeah. And Lou Garcia, who ran it, I kept a lot of cuttings and I still have them. If ever you come over, I'll show you them.
Okay. I'll hold you to that. I'll surprise you and knock on your door one day. I'm going to throw up some names at you, just the word association, and feel free to elaborate on how you see fit. Johnny Giacometti.
Johnny Giacometti, a good player, Italian guy. I didn't know any Italian, but he played for Appiah, so he wouldn't be a friend, but he was a good player, a good scorer. Played wide on the left or played up the front. I didn't know him as a person, but he was a good player. But apparently, a friend of mine called Greg Stock.
Yeah, we know Stocky.
His wife's father remembered me. His wife's father remembered me because apparently I did one of these with Giacometti on the pitch. I can't remember it. The year they beat us 8-1, the home game, they beat us 4-0 on our ground. But apparently I had a bit of a blow with Giacometti that day. But I ended up pointing my finger up his nose. It was a good.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that in your short time in Australia, there might be a few people that remember you pointing the finger up at a few people, because I think feisty comes to mind when describing you. Is that about right?
I hope it is. I hope. I would, if it is, I would consider it a compliment.
I'll take it as a compliment.
It's somebody else's choice of word, not mine.
Yeah. That's fair enough. All right, you were good. You probably weren't really good mates when you were here with Les Shineplug, but you developed a friendship over the years. But what was he like as a player? You played a lot.
Good player. Yeah. When I first met him, I said, well, he's too big, he's got too much weight. But he was so strong, and he could dribble with the ball, didn't have pace. Obviously, he developed his game without pace. But he was influential. In fact, I think he ran the club, to be honest.
As a player?
I don't think the Czech guys who owned and ran Prague, I think they did what Les said. At the time, it didn't seem a good idea, but when I was down in added to the Australian squad for Chelsea, I went down to Melbourne, and having had this altercation with Les the previous season, I was very wary of him. But no, we're good. It seemed whatever I said or did made a point. And I gave him a couple of winners that I'd had tips for.
That helps in the friendship.
Yeah, and that must have helped him because I gave him a tip. Said, I've had a tip for this horse. I remember the name of the guy who gave it to me, and it won at 4-1. So Les liked to bet. So yeah, he made us pals. That, and I still speak to him.
Yeah, you're still in touch. That's great. That's an important part. So you had some highlights here. Certainly enjoyed your time enough in that short period to, one, represent the country, get an Australian citizenship, and as you're proudly wearing your Aussie shirt there, you've been back how many times since that?
I've been back. I reckon I've been back 14 times since 1995.
Okay, so
I've never been before then.
Yeah, it's a home away from home, isn't it?
I love the place. The only trouble is, George, it's not getting any nearer.
No, even with first class travel.
Well, business class. Don't mention first class if my wife's around, because she'll get big ideas.
You will get big ideas. All right, so you did get back involved in the game when you went back home eventually. Talk us through how you became back involved again, and then what you were doing.
Well, I decided I wasn't going to do it full time again, so I went and got this qualification, and I got a job working for the Education Authority, and I played part-time professional in the top league in the country, what was the Northern Premier League at the time, yeah. I played in that league for 10 years.
What club were you playing for?
I played for 3 teams: at Stalybridge Celtic, which is at Manchester; Buxton, which is in Derbyshire; and a team called Mosley, which is in Manchester. I ended up the captain at Mosley, and they knew me well in the area, even though I was a Yorkshire man and they were Lancashire. Yeah, I loved it then. Then I gave it away for a while. I got remarried and give football away, but then I was offered a job by Howard Wilkinson to help him do a bit of scouting at Leeds. Then I ended up being the full-time chief scout at Leeds, managed to get early retirement from my education job, with my enhancement for the pension, thank God. And then I got the job at Leeds for Howard with a 5-year contract. Unfortunately, after the 2.5 years, he got the sack, so we all got the sack, and they paid me up for my contract. That was 1998. I actually got paid up. So I've been retired since. It's not bad. It's not a bad life.
Okay, I've grown up reading about football and watching football and talking about football for the entire life, and I'm not too sure that I've actually met an official scout. I've heard about them. We know they exist. It's kind of like a dark little secret job, that kind of like working for the CIA. They're out in the background in watching reserve games or youth team games. What did it actually involve? Let us know. What does a scout at Leeds United do?
Well, it's changed since those days with the introduction of agents.
Yeah.
When I was at Leeds, that's when the agents first came in. But so forget the agents. The job was to go around and get players. Anybody heard anything about any player? I didn't do schoolboys. I would have somebody else to do that. I did the pros. And I would get a mention, say, oh, what's this player? Or what's that player? And you'd hear about somebody. So I had half a dozen, 7 scouts. So I'd send them out to watch players I'd heard of. But I watched him. But I also did his match reports for the next games, you see.
Yeah.
And so I was in charge of the scouting of the professional players at Leeds. I ended up, if you think, I went to Australia twice, to Poland, every other place in Europe.
Who were you coming out to look at when you came to Australia?
I came to watch Stan Lazaridis, but he went to West Ham. I went to watch. I had Tony Popovic over. That was an Artie Blues recommendation, and Danny Tiato, the man. Howard didn't sign them, but in later years, when Danny had gone to Leicester, Howard was doing a bit of work at Leicester for a friend of his, and he told Danny, he said, I should have signed you at Leeds. I told him he should have signed him, but he said no. I made the recommendations. He decided yes or no, and he was the boss. So If he said no, the answer was no. But he told me in later years that the reason he offered me the job as full-time chief scout was because I had an opinion of my own, and if he didn't agree with his, I said so.
Yeah.
I wasn't a yes man to Howard.
No, that's
and you have to be a yes man to keep your job.
Well, you do, but I think the good managers, not just necessarily in football, but any manager in any business, should be comfortable in at least being challenged by, a verbal conversation. You know what I mean? They shouldn't be fearful of their staff challenging them professionally. You're not challenging him. You're not saying to him, you don't know what you're doing. You're just saying, I think this is the right guy. Or
well, I think we all have different opinions in life and see things differently. I listen to some of the pundits on the telly, football, and I think, well, to be honest, the only one I listen to seriously is Graham Souness. I think he's the best of all. But I've realised that if I don't agree with what the pundit's saying, then he's entitled to his opinion. And it's not my opinion, then fine. I'll argue against what he says. But at the end of the day, as David Beckham always says, it's his opinion, and that's how he sees it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So with the travelling, so you were saying that you would also scout the opposition team, say, for the next game. So you would prepare notes. And
I do notes. I wish it was. It was a 2.5 hour, 3 hour job every weekend, writing because the gaffer, he wanted his detail.
Yeah, but still a great job, isn't it? Going around watching the opposition and scouting players, getting paid to do it. That's got to be a good job.
The pay, did you say?
Well, you're getting paid to go.
Unfortunately, there wasn't the money in football then as there is now.
No.
Unfortunately, but that's the way it is. It's gone way beyond my understanding. But and that's because of the agents. But it's part of the game. It's not the part I like most. I still love watching the football. In fact, I've watched 3 A-League games this week.
No, okay, yeah. Well, it's back on and it's on nearly every night. I just want to ask, with the scouting, you talked about a few of the Aussie boys there, but Aussie boys aside, who is probably the best pick that you got and Leeds signed that you were thinking that I'm really happy with that and that was a success? What's an example?
Well, there are three of them.
Yeah.
In 1994, we had a shout of playing in South Africa called Lucas Radebe.
Very good player.
And the video of the game, I would say, have a look at that video and see what you think about this guy. And I look, he said, have you looked at that video? I said, yeah. He said, what do you see? I said, the guy's got something. And he said, well, get out and see him. Right. So the day after, I go to Joburg. And I got there Saturday. The game was on Sunday for Kaiser Chiefs against Liverpool. And a guy came, an agent came and picked myself up, and Bobby Robson, the manager, and the guy who was the manager, Bob Houghton, who was the manager at Zurich at the time, took us to another game to watch Mamelodi Sundowns. Well, I didn't want to be there. I'd been on the plane. I watched it. Anyway, the striker caught my eye. Philemon Masinga, they called him. So I thought I'll check him when I get back, because he was on that same video that Lucas had been on. Oh, he's not bad, him. But then when we were at the game, the day after, we were sort of watching the national anthems, and I said to Bob Houghton, Bob, I said, the guy we've come to watch, Lucas Radebe, the guy we've come to watch is not playing. He says, you don't know who I've come to watch. I said, I know who we've all come to watch. And he didn't play. Later on in the hotel, I was chatting to half a dozen of the South African players who were there. They didn't know who I was. And I just threw it in that, you have a full team, a good result. I said, no, Lucas Radebe didn't play. I said, who's he? Oh, he said, he's the best player in South Africa. The week later, South Africa were playing 2 games in Australia, Adelaide and Sydney.
Oh, yeah.
I would go on holiday, so I said to the managing director, I said, I'm going to Australia. This is a week after, I'm going to Australia to watch this player. So I get to Adelaide, and I checked in the hotel, and I went for a walk to Adelaide, and I found the hotel that South African players were at.
Yeah.
Found the coach, started talking to him. He hadn't a clue who I was, and I'm saying, playing Australia. I said, do you fancy your chances? How are you going to do? I said, have you got a full team? So now he says, Lucas Radebi's not come. He said, he turned his ankle last week. I said, he's not come. Oh, right, okay. So the guy had gone to South Africa and I've been to Australia all inside a week and a half. And so I went to watch the games and Masinga did okay. I watched him, he did okay. So I spoke to him. I said, do you want to come to Leeds? He didn't know, he'd never heard of Leeds. Yeah. Anyway, he cut in a long story short. I got him at Leeds and then Howard said he were going to sign him. So he said to me, what about Radebi? I said, look, Howard, I told him everything I've just told you about me checking on him. I said, if we don't sign him, somebody else will. I said, I would sign him. And he signed him without him actually seeing him. And he became and still is a legend at Leeds.
Oh, of course.
He did so well.
Wonderful career. Yeah.
And even now, if I go to Leeds, 20 odd years later, the supporters who were there then, they still love me by default because they love Lucas. So they still love me. And I'm still in touch with him. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, Masinga died last year with cancer at 49. Right. So he was the best one, rather in terms of value for money and a good player. I also was responsible for Lee Bowyer, who was brilliant at Leeds as a 19-year-old. He got in trouble with the law. He was found not guilty. And while he was in trouble, and they were having a couple of court cases, probably in a nightclub, punching somebody, and he played out his skin. This was after I'd left. George Graham loved him. He played out his skin. As soon as he got off the charge, he went off the boil. He's manager at Charlton now, but he was a good signing. And the other one was Nigel Martin, the goalkeeper who later went to Everton and played for England. So those Lucas, Nigel Martin, and Lee Bowyer were the best ones. I would have signed Danny Tiato, but I would have said no.
Yeah, so, Lee Bowyer, not off the field, on the field. Did you see any resemblance to you in a young Lee Bowyer? Was there a feisty Lee Bowyer?
He was a bit bigger than me, not as quick as me, but he liked to tackle and he was very good. We paid £2.5 million for him, which was a lot then for a 19-year-old. He was very good, and I was pleased with him. And Howard watched him. He said, I'm going to watch him after I'd watched him, or my scouts had watched him, and he said, I'll sign him. So we signed him.
We can't have a Leeds discussion. It would be remiss of me to have a Leeds discussion and not mention Harry and Mark Viduka. I'd really like your opinion on both of those two boys.
Magnificent players. Harry is as skillful a player as I've ever seen. If people say, who's the best Australian player, who's the best ever Australian player, I always say Harry, because he was the actually most skillful player. Now, I think Lucas Neal would have a claim to that, having played over 100 times for Australia. I think Mark Schwarzer would have a claim for it. I think
Timmy Cahill. Tim Cahill, is that what you're going to say?
Cahill, that's what I'm trying to say. I think he'd have a right to claim it. So that's down to opinion. But I love Harry as a player. He's so skillful. If ever they could have got him to tackle anybody, he would have been the best player there's ever been in the world. Viduka, what I remember most about Matt Viduka, if he said yes, he was unplayable. If he said no, he might as well not be there. But that must be the nature of the beast. If he said yes, he was a fantastic player. And there's been other guys. I love the Aussie players. I wouldn't bag any of them, really.
Yeah. Out of all the ones that you'd signed and you'd watched, who's the one that got away that you probably made the best of their career elsewhere, that got away, that you thought perhaps should have been signed on your say-so, wasn't, and then went on and had a stellar career somewhere else? Was there one?
Well, Danny Tiato would be the one. I think Danny's a good player. I used to chat to him at Leicester. I said, if you'd shoot a goal as hard as you kick the players, I said, you'd score a lot more goals. Because he did. He made his name, did Danny, in a testimonial game for Dennis Irwin at Old Trafford as a pre-season friendly. And he kicked David Beckham uphill and down Dale. and everybody said, who's this fella? I said, he's a player I wanted at Leeds. But he played further forward, a left side midfielder before he went to full-back.
Yeah, that's right.
I like Danny, yeah.
Very good, very good. I'm just going to throw up a couple other names at you. Geoff Boycott.
He used to live 50 metres across the road from me.
Yeah.
I think he was a fantastic cricketer, but I'm surprised he's not had one or two confrontations with various people, probably me as well, on the golf course. But that's a funny story rather than a nasty story.
Oh.
He came on the golf course one day, interfering, just walking on the golf course, and he, because I was playing with a friend of his, and he kept commenting, telling him how to play and what not to do. When we got to the 17th hole, and I went to knock a wedge into the green, and I scuffed it a bit, and he went, he sort of half laughed. And my other pal said, "Leave him alone, Geoff, don't do it." Anyway, he got the message I was giving to him, and he went off the golf course that day. Having said that, he was a fantastic cricket. My grandkids play cricket, and I play cricket. And I tell the grandkids, whatever happens, don't be out. And that was Boycott's philosophy. Don't be out. And I liked it.
Yeah. No, he certainly he put a prize on his wicket, didn't he?
Oh, he did. Yeah, yeah. He doesn't live across the road now. He moved.
Okay. Well, you probably scared him off after the golf game. There might have been that feisty look you gave him.
Sorry?
Might have been that feisty look you gave him.
Maybe. That'd have to be somebody else's interpretation, George. Yeah.
Very good, very good. All right. Now we're about to wrap up. So I want to, before we do, we did mention him, but I want to thank specifically Greg Stock for helping us tee up the interview. He's always a help. Stocky is a beautiful man, and he's helped us tee this up. Now I want to thank Peggy, your beautiful wife, for helping us with the technology, because without Peggy, this wouldn't have happened. You agree with that?
I do agree with that. And as far as Greg's concerned, he's been to my house, so I'm extending a welcome to you. Maybe in England, give me a shout and I'll pick you up.
And likewise, if you're ever in Melbourne, I've got a cold drink in the fridge for you.
That's good, but you realise I'm a Sydney sider, don't you?
Yeah, I realise that. But it's once you've come halfway around the world, another hour's not that far.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And while the Sydney people might not like to hear this, Melbourne is a much better place, all right? So just put that in your notebook, and I'll put up with the complaints from people who hear that comment.
Well, if you were over here, when I was growing up, the Yorkshire-Lancashire thing was a bit like the Sydney-Melbourne thing, so I understand it all.
The local rivalries, they're good. Good for banter.
Well, it's funny you said that, because one of my favourite Australians of all time is, I can't think of the name of the horse now. The horse that was unbeaten that came to England.
Farlap.
No, not Farlap. No,
the more recent one.
Yeah, 2012 she was there. I'm still in touch with the girl who did the horse. What do you call it? Black Caviar.
Oh yeah, Black Caviar. Yeah, cool.
That's one of my favourite Aussie girls. That Black Caviar.
Yeah. I think everyone was happy with Black Caviar.
Yeah.
So people who won money on it consistently.
Well, you could never get a bet on it in later years, could you?
No, you weren't winning big money. You had to be on from the start. So
that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so you love your horses. That's good. That's good to hear. Look, mate, I really, really want to extend a special thanks. It's taken us a few months to get to this point because of COVID and the situation where we didn't know what we were doing, but we finally bit the bullet and decided to have a chat and record it, which is superb. I'm really honoured to have spent some time face to face with you. It's a wonderful story. Like I said, I think I introduced you, an Aussie citizen, a Socceroo, a Barnsley-born champion, who was feisty on a good day. Is that fair to say?
Well, I hope so.
Never took a backward step. That's what we'll say.
Well, I always believed in the one. If you can run away to fight another day, I'd do that. I'd use my brains. I hope.
No, it's been a great story.
It's a pleasure. I hope we can get 2 or 3 minutes out of it, and it's been worth your while.
I'm sure we'll get 2 or 3 at least. No, it's been a wonderful story, and thank you for sharing it with us and spending some time. And I look forward to catching up with you in the future.
Yeah, likewise.
Good on you, mate. Enjoy the rest of your day, and go and get into that English sun and get a suntan.
I want to try my best. I want to see some friends at 2 o'clock. So I can get a couple of hours in it. It's 29 degrees today.
It's steaming hot. Go and enjoy it. Have a good day.